Good evening from a crowded and rather lively Westminster, where MPs have returned from their summer break in a crucial week for the Brexit process. Well, tonight they are voting on a motion which would give them control over business in the House of Commons. The vote is going on. It's more or less been completed. The result should be with us in a few minutes' time. Now, if the government is defeated, MPs would then spend tomorrow debating a bill to prevent a no-deal Brexit. And the Prime Minister has already signalled that if he's defeated, he will try to call for an early general election. Earlier today, the government lost its working majority in the Commons when the Conservative Philip Lee defected to the Lib Dems in protest at the government's approach. Let's start tonight with this report from our political editor, Laura Kunsberg.
Speeding to crisis or opportunity? Boris Johnson revving through Whitehall to face the first votes in Parliament as Prime Minister. The first genuine test of authority. But he's an old hand at triggering tension.
Statement, the Prime Minister.
Mocked within moments of getting on his feet.
This country still stands then as now for democracy, for the rule of law.
Then less than 2 minutes in, watch this. The three MPs walking through the chamber are two Lib Dems flanking a Conservative, Philip Lee, who turns right with them to take a new seat alongside that rival party. A defection that takes away Boris Johnson's majority altogether.
When you've got an administration that seems hell-bent on delivering a no-deal Brexit, that isn't in the best interest of my constituents. It's not in the best interest of the businesses in my constituency. And I'm elected by Bracknell constituents to represent their best interests.
With officially now no majority and bristling Tory rebels who may be enjoying the moment with familiar faces. Like his predecessor, Mr Johnson may not be able to hold off enemies on the Tory benches behind him.
It is Jeremy Corbyn's surrender bill. That's what it is. It means running up. It means running up the white flag. The bill's shameful. There are no circumstances in which I will ever accept anything like it.
Foes in his own party working alongside Labour.
Jeremy Corbyn!
Determined together to block any sense we could leave the EU without a deal.
He isn't winning friends in Europe. He's losing friends at home. His is a government with no mandate, no morals, and as of today, no majority.
Careful plans for beating the government tonight have been hatched with Tory rebels, Labour and the smaller parties too.
This is a massively important day. All of us are united across the opposition parties. This is about stopping the threat of no deal.
As things stand, you are confident you will manage to take control of the Commons tonight?
Yes, I am, because this is about parliamentarians doing their job across party.
How much do the next 12 hours matter?
They matter immensely. Our job here and now, whatever our future aspirations are, is to get the legislation that ensures that we do not leave at the end of October with a no-deal Brexit.
Sounds straightforward, but remember it's deeply unusual for backbenchers to grab control of what gets discussed in there, however much support they might have outside. But when the moment came...
It has become an urgent matter for Parliament to discuss, in particular for this House to discuss, whether it can accept a no-deal exit.
The Speaker put the question.
Does the right honourable gentleman have the leave of the House?
Then watch a clump of Tories stand to rebel. Opposition MPs applauding. Forces joining together to provoke this controversial debate. Tories who vote against the Prime Minister have been told it will cost them their job.
If he thinks that the device of withdrawing the whip this evening is going to change my mind or that of my honourable and right honourable friends, he has got another thing coming.
What times we live in, I will be voting for this motion.
But is the government that bothered? This could be a splintering of the Tory party, with a blistering invitation to the rebels from one who'd already quit.
I have no regrets to those brave souls on the Conservative benches who face expulsion from the party for voting for the motion today. I say this: your country needs you.
For the government, even this vote taking place tonight risks a delay to Brexit. The one thing the Prime Minister's vowed he'd never do. The one thing his ministers would fight with all they have.
We find ourselves debating a proposition that seeks to confound the referendum result again. Mr. Speaker, I wish to be clear. What is proposed today is constitutionally irregular. We all have a role to play, and it does considerable damage when some of us choose to subvert rather than reinforce, to hinder rather than to polish our constitution.
I fear that if we go down the path that is being suggested tonight, we will be opening up a chasm of distrust between Parliament and the British people. It is something that will play only into the hands of the political fringes, and that is something we will all come to regret.
The lines of this clash were drawn the moment Boris Johnson moved into number 10. But this profound conflict between Parliament and the Prime Minister can't be settled with both sides content.
So here we are, live inside the chamber of the House of Commons tonight. It's a packed chamber for this very crucial vote. Our political editor Laura Kuenssberg inside the Houses of Parliament watching these images with us. And Laura, just to underline what's at stake here and the fact that MPs, lots of them, trying to take control of Commons business in order to prevent a no-deal Brexit.
That's right, Hugh. There's an electric, almost a disbelieving atmosphere here in the House of Commons tonight, actually. A sense that this is a conflict that has been so long in the making, but is only really now breaking out into the open. It's the first big and crucial test of authority for the new Prime Minister, who's only been in office, really, for a matter of weeks. But if we just remember what the result that we are about to get is all about, MPs are not voting tonight on whether to delay Brexit. They are voting to give themselves the right in the next couple of days to change the law to block the Prime Minister from ever taking us out of the European Union without a formal arrangement in place. These arguments have been made and disputed for so long now, but this is a brutal fight between the Parliament and the Prime Minister not long into Boris Johnson's premiership. The result of the vote is coming very, very shortly. The ayes, if the ayes have it, that will mean that the rebels and the opposition parties have defeated the government and that they will have given themselves the right to outlaw leaving the European Union without a deal. But if they succeed in the next few minutes, that doesn't mean the fight is over. There would be plenty more hoops for them to jump through in the next few days. I'm just glancing at the screen down from me. You can see the tellers there in the House of Commons chamber starting to line up. The body language of both sides is absolutely crucial in these nerve-wracking moments like this, because this isn't just about what happens with Brexit. It's about whether we have a general election. It's about who is in charge of this country. Let's have a listen in to what's happening in the House of Commons right now.
Order. The ayes to the right, 328. The noes to the left, 301.
Not a good start, Boris.
Order. The ayes to the right, 328. The noes to the left, 301. So the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Unlock.
Another Burko fix.
Order. Brexit process, a milestone.
A big milestone, Hugh.
One of the front benches want to speak the Prime Minister.
The consequences of this vote tonight, it means that Parliament is on the brink of wrecking any deal that we might be able to strike in Brussels, because tomorrow's bill would hand control of the negotiations to the EU, and that would mean more dither, more delay and more confusion, and it would mean that the EU themselves would be able to decide how long to keep this country in the EU. And since I refuse to go along with that plan, we are going to have to make a choice, Mr. Speaker. I don't want an election. The public don't want an election. I don't believe the right honourable gentleman wants an election. But if the House votes for this bill tomorrow, the public will have to choose who goes to Brussels on October the 17th to sort this out and take this country forward. Everybody knows that if the right honourable gentleman is the Prime Minister, he will go to Brussels and beg for an extension. He will accept Brussels demands, and we will have years more arguments over Brexit. And by contrast, Mr. Speaker, everyone knows that if this government is in charge and if I go to Brussels, I will go for a deal, and I believe I will get a deal. We will leave anyway on October the 31st. The people of this country will have to choose, Mr. Speaker. The Leader of the Opposition has been begging for an election for 2 years. He has crowds of supporters outside calling for an election. I don't want an election, but if MPs vote tomorrow to stop negotiations and to compel another pointless delay to Brexit, potentially for years, then that would be the only way to resolve this. And I can confirm that we are tonight tabling a motion under the Fixed Term Parliament Act.
Thank you. Point of order, Jeremy Corbyn.
Mr. Speaker, on a point of order, I welcome tonight's vote. We live in a parliamentary democracy. We do not have a presidency, but a Prime Minister. Prime Ministers govern with the consent of the House of Commons, representing the people in whom the sovereignty rests. There is no consent. There is no consent in this House to leave the European Union without a deal. There is no majority for no deal in the country. As I've said before, if the Prime Minister has the confidence in his Brexit policy, when he has one he can put forward, he should put it before the people in a public vote. And so, he wants to table a motion for a general election. Fine, get the bill through first in order to prevent, in order to take no deal off the table.
Order. Point order. Order. It's very rude for members. Order. 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 I say to the Chancellor of the Duchy that when he turns up at our children's school as a parent, he's a very well-behaved fellow. He wouldn't dare behave like that in front of Colin Hall.
Well, riotous scenes and uproar in the House of Commons. A very, very dramatic few moments, and with good reason, Hugh. Real drama there in the House of Commons tonight. MPs have voted, defeating Boris Johnson quite significantly with a majority of more than 20 votes. They will, in the next few days, try to change the law to rule out the possibility of ever leaving the European Union without a deal. This is an audacious and a very unusual move for the opposition and backbenchers, Tory backbenchers, to join together to try to block the Prime Minister from ever having that possibility. But Boris Johnson's riposte, very clear. He says if MPs manage to change the law in what he sees as a way that would create another pointless delay to Brexit, he will lay tomorrow a move in Parliament to try to force a general election on October the 15th. And in his answer, Jeremy Corbyn said, well, not yet, but a suggestion there, a very heavy suggestion, that if MPs are successful in blocking no deal and changing the law in the next few days, then after that, Labour may well agree to Mr Johnson's request to go to the country. Nothing is certain. There are still lots of hoops to jump through. The House of Lords is one question. There are plenty of things that could go wrong or right, depending which side of the argument you are on. But clearly tonight, MPs, by voting in this way, have taken the country a step much closer to another general election, another major question being put to the public and put to all of us very soon.
Laura, let's just recap a moment for those who are just joining us here on BBC News at 10, because we've had this very significant vote in the House of Commons in the past few minutes. Let's have a look at the figures once again, because the tellers, when they declared them, were giving 328 for this motion, which allows MPs to take control of parliamentary business, and as Laura was saying, a pretty hefty majority in terms of this Parliament of 27 over the government on 301. And no disguising the anger on the government front benches, certainly from the Prime Minister. And then Mr Corbyn himself, of course, responding. And Laura, I think the question for lots of people now is, How will this work out in parliamentary terms if you have MPs on the one hand trying to get control, as they have done now, of parliamentary business, trying to get this bill through, and at the same time the Prime Minister trying to enact the terms of the Fixed Term Parliament Act to get an election date? How are those two processes going to work in tandem?
Well, the question, Hugh, is very open as to whether or not they manage to work in tandem at all. The answer to that may well be a really tangled mess over the next few days. Because fundamentally what we have here is a Prime Minister who will do almost anything, it seems, to stick to the promise that got him into number 10, which was to leave the European Union whatever happens at his Halloween deadline, and a Parliament under its current iteration that is pretty much dead set against ever leaving without a deal. So Boris Johnson can threaten a general election. He and his team have made it absolutely plain that if MPs vote to change the law in the next few days and are successful in doing that, they will try with vigour, determination and perhaps a lot of bullying as well to get an election to happen. But if there are MPs who just are too suspicious of them, well, he may fall well short of getting a 2/3 majority that he's meant to be able to get in the House of Commons to allow election to go ahead. But my understanding is if they don't manage to get a 2/3 majority, they would simply come back with a different version, a different motion to put to MPs, which they believe they would be able to get through with one vote. Just one vote in the end could see us head towards another general election. I have to say, though, and I think it's important for all of our viewers to understand, all of this is really uncharted waters, not just because the way that Brexit has sort of rewired and reshaped our political system, but also because the area of law that now governs all of this is the Fixed Term Parliaments Act, which you mentioned, which was only brought in a few years ago under the coalition and has never been tested before in this way. It's never been put under this kind of strain. And therefore, the outcomes, I'm afraid to say, if you're looking for stability, don't ask me to predict anything with an enormous amount of certainty tonight. But as we were saying just 24 hours ago, the conflict between the Prime Minister and Parliament is so profound. Before too long, this conflict is going to have to be resolved one way or another, and it's very likely, whether it's in 6 weeks or a couple of months, that that may well mean all of us being asked to answer it, because this place has simply just not been able to find agreement amongst itself.
Well,